Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And for today, I just want to go through and sit down and discuss with y'all all these different games that we managed to get throughout the year of 2023. It's so many good games this year that by the time we hit December 7th, when the Game Awards actually airs, there's going to be quite a bit of a fierce competition for the nominations for Game of the Year, let alone the actual Game of the Year. So I just wanted to go through and just talk about, now that we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Spider-Man 2 that just recently released the other week ago, I think for the most part we have most of our major releases that are going to come out this year. It might be a shocker here or there though, but I feel like the list is pretty solid to the point where I think I can take the time to sit down with y'all and just discuss, in my personal opinion, all the different games that could possibly get nominated, and then from that list get 6 of them that I think possibly could be in the nominations for Game of the Year though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. So before I kick things off, normally at the Game Awards, they like to choose 6 different games to be nominated for Game of the Year. However, when I started going through this whole list, I got way more than just 6, like maybe 4 or 5 more than the actual normal 6 though. So I figured I'll just go through everything that has the potential to be nominated. So I'm gonna start off with the lowest Metacritic score and then work my way up to the highest. So we kind of start low, work our way up high. And usually for most games that get nominated, it usually starts off in the mid 80s and then kind of gets up into the upper 90s though. So starting off first on my list, I had none other than Starfield. Now Starfield actually came in as a Metacritic of 86. That was a game that actually dropped out on September 6th for all Xbox consoles, PC, Game Pass, everything else in between though. And at least with this game, it was definitely one of the biggest releases for Xbox for this year. Rightfully so, a game that was made by Bethesda, had a lot of different promise up in there, a lot of different salt with the Sony players out there. I don't understand all that though. The game kind of got a lot of undeserved hate for that reason alone though. But regardless, this was a phenomenal game, a game that actually blew up, actually sold quite well within the month of September in terms of the game sale charts for that game. That actually, they heavily pushed this for Game Pass though, but nonetheless, it still managed to outshine a lot of different things that was released in that month though. But overall, this game had like a lot of different freedom, a lot of different exploration. With it being a space related game, you had the freedom to be able to explore anything, be able to upgrade different ship parts and stuff. You're able to make a lot of different decisions that might come with their own different consequences. You can be like someone that's like really explorative, try to avoid the combat, or fully embrace the combat and do everything else in between. While yes, there's like a somewhat a limited kind of story up in there though, that's not necessarily the whole entire experience with just doing a little bit story. Literally, the game really opens up once you finish the story, and then you get to do all these different side quests and stuff like that. It isn't necessarily a game that you're going to be able to start and finish when you pick up this game. It's going to be a game meant to play for hours upon end when you really dig up into it. I managed to play and get my hands on it a little bit on the PC. It wasn't necessarily a game for me, but I can surely appreciate for this game in terms of what it brings and what it delivers for everybody else that was a fan of this series though. But yeah, kicking things off, you had none other than Starfield come in at an 86. Next, we had Final Fantasy 16, and that came in at a Metacritic score of 87 right there. Now, that was a game that dropped out on June 22nd of this year, though. And with it being a new entry within the Final Fantasy series, there's a lot of different clout and a lot of different, brand recognition when it comes to the Final Fantasy series. It's not like, most people and their mamas kind of know exactly what Final Fantasy is, or at least have heard of the name before, though. While yes, there was a big commotion on whether or not people really like the new style within the action style series that this Final Fantasy game is now taking in, and some people were debating whether or not should action be the future of Final Fantasy or should turn-based be. I think there's definitely an audience for for both sides of the coin though. I feel like Square Enix could technically split the series apart and make different games that cater to different audiences though. But 16 alone, there is quite a bit of a fan base for it though. From what I kind of seen, for the most part, a lot more people kind of like 16 in comparison to the original 15 that came before it though. So it did some good things in terms of that regard though. But yeah, it was just like a really nice, kind of short, simple, easy experience for you to kind of begin and end. The story was pretty solid from what I heard though. It's a game that I hadn't actually managed to pick up yet, but I do kind of plan on picking it up around Black Friday, around this holiday season. Probably the game will drop down in price a little bit though. But yeah, in terms of a game that's heavily involved with cinematics, in terms of the style and the presentation, in terms of how flashy that story is, it could easily be one of those games that easily just kind of walks in the door in terms of being one of those games nominated for Game of the Year. So next up we have Hi-Fi Rush. Now that came in at a Metacritic score of an 89 right there though. So started getting a little close to those 90s right there though. And Hi-Fi Rush was definitely one of those games that actually stood out. Like it's one of those, if I remember right, one of those shadow drops that actually happened within the Xbox presentation. So it wasn't like we had like a long build up for this. And for a lot of people within the Xbox community, you have a lot, I mean a ton of different shooters and stuff. A lot of different genre games, whether it be shooters, maybe some racing games here and there though. Some of the genres tend to kind of bleed over into others, and it's like I've seen this game before. Wasn't this a similar game that kind of played in this kind of style though? But with this game, it was really unique because it was actually made from one of those few Japanese studios that Xbox owns. They don't really own that many though. The fact that it was from one of them, and the style of this game was completely different from the traditional Xbox norm, if you could say that though. Literally, it's like a rhythm-based game, rhythm action game though. You're syncing up your different attacks to the different music. You're just going around exploring. It's really colorful. Have quite a bit of different voice acting and stuff up in there though. It's definitely a very different experience from your traditional Xbox game that you might get from either like a Halo or a Forza or anything else in between though. So it's quite interesting to see a different type of taste of game right there. And early on in that year, people were already thinking, could this potentially be Game of the Year? You know what? And looking at the tail end of the year where we're at right now, it still has a very good shot. This is more so the fact, the judges and stuff still remember this game, because this came out literally January the 25th though. So honestly, a really solid game from Xbox right there though, but definitely one to kind of keep an eye out for. Next up, we have the indie rep coming in at a Metacritic score of 91. We're talking about Sea of Stars. Now this was definitely a game that a lot of people were really looking forward to. Definitely had some major call outs to longtime RPG fans, especially for those that really love games back in the 16-bit era, in terms of games like Chrono Trigger or anything else. There was like a heavy RPG emphasis back on that Super Nintendo era, or just the 16-bit era in general right there though. And it just made so many different callbacks to different games of that genre though. And obviously you can go and pick it up on any console, whether it be Nintendo, Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, etc. though. But out of all the different indie games, this was definitely one of the highest ranked one. It kind of slipped into the mainstream a little bit though. You heard a lot of different people either saying like really good things or really good remarks from this game though. I managed to dabble in it a little bit though. I don't know if it's necessarily meant for me though, but I can appreciate the art style and the direction and stuff like that. Everything that the game does in terms of the presentation, the game looks absolutely beautiful. I think they really outdid themselves with this game in terms of its presentation and everything else in between though. So yeah, for a lot of different RPG fans, this is definitely going to be a contender. If they had to put an indie rep up in here, this could easily slide into their top 6 list for nominations for Game of the Year. Oh boy, now this is where the list gets really interesting. Coming in at a Metacritic score of 91 as well, we had none other than Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that came out on October 20th right here. Outside of, one other game that released earlier in May, and I'll talk about that game once we get there to it. This is like probably my second most anticipated game of the year right here. We literally just got it, just the other week ago, and oh shoot right here. I think this one, out of all the things I'm going to mention here on this list, I can almost guarantee you that this is going to be one of those games that's going to make it into the nominations for Game of the Year. I think literally Insomniac Games, which is like one of my top 2 favorite gaming studios, period. They've been looking for a game, whether it's, one of their Spider-Man games or Ratchet and Clank game. They've been looking for a game that could manage to crack up into that 90 score Metacritic game right there. And this just happens to be the one coming in at a 91. Everything I've seen in terms of the cutscenes and, the different combat styles, you being able to switch back and forth between Peter Parker and Miles Morales. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that is being offered on this table right here. And it looks like an absolute fantastic game right here. Obviously, I've been trying to avoid a lot of different spoilers and stuff like that though, but the game looks really promising and really surprising in terms of what Insomniac Games managed to cook up in that kitchen. I really feel like they've been the ones really holding up the PS5 console for this whole entire generation. Just saying right there, Sony though. But honestly, a really great game. You definitely better put this one on the list. So coming in at a Metacritic score of 92, we have none other than Street Fighter 6. Now this one right here, this is definitely one of the more standout fighting games in comparison to like something like a Mortal Kombat 1, or we would have had the newest Tekken that's coming out early in 2024 next year though. But this one right here has a lot of style behind it. I mean a ton of style. Like normally I'm not one of the biggest fighting guru fans out there though. I like my Smash Brothers and a few little other fighting games here and there though. I dabbled with Street Fighter back in the day with Street Fighter 2 though, but this one has a lot of stylization behind it and a lot of different other modern things that just kind of makes the game a little bit more accessible to all different type of fighting games out there. They even went over and beyond within the single player campaign experience where you're able to actually use an avatar that you're able to create, learn different other styles from other characters that are in the game as your regular characters, and be able to incorporate and put a lot of time in that. And you're even able to use that main character even within just the regular arcade sense in terms of you being able to play against other players online. The online has a lot of different functions as well. You're even able to go through a certain select order of just random old school style fighting games that Capcom made back in the day as far as the arcade and stuff. There's a lot of customization, a lot of style, just the fluidness in terms of you being able to do all your different fights. Of course, they're still going through and adding a lot of different characters though. But yeah, this is definitely the standout fighting game. And if any fighting game was able to manage to get a nomination for a game of the year, Street Fighter 6 could definitely manage to jump over that hurdle though, but definitely one to keep an eye out on in terms of game of the year nominations. So this is where the list starts to pick up a whole lot of steam, because coming in at a score of 93, we had none other than Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Now this game right here definitely stands out in terms of just platformers in general. For the longest time, me, along with a lot of other fans out there, got sick and tired of the new Super Mario Brothers formula. Like what, you had new Super Mario Brothers on the DS, the Wii, then you had it on the 3DS and the Wii U, and then you got a port of Wii U Deluxe, and it's like, I don't know, everybody was getting burned out on that style, but Super Mario Brothers Wonder has you wondering what the heck is going to happen next in this game, because obviously you had the introduction of the Wonder Flower, which changes up the whole entire scope and environments of what you can expect to see within a given level. You can have everything from singing piranha plants, up as down, left as right, you riding on top of different bulls and stuff like that. You're knocking over flagpoles where you could have ended the level, and the level actually extends on a little bit further though. There's this a whole lot of different other scenarios that can happen thanks to these Wonder Flowers though. So instead of you just having your traditional start from point A and end at point B, there's just a lot of different diversity. It gives you a lot of different reasons to actually go back and replay certain levels, and just collecting all these different Wonder Seeds and stuff. It's just your completely different out there Mario game. It's probably the closest game we had to it was like way back in the day, all the way back to Super Mario Bros. World on the Super Nintendo, or Super Mario Bros. 3 on the original NES. That's probably the closest vibes I had within a 2D Mario in a long time, because those are two great outstanding games for them. But the fact that we finally managed to get a new fresh experience within Mario Brothers with the 2D style games, oh my gosh, it is such a welcome treat right there though. But yeah, definitely one to kind of keep an eye on, because I never thought that the Metacritic score will be as high as a 93. I thought it was going to be somewhere between an 85 and somewhere between like a low 90, like 90 at tops. But the fact that it came in at a 93, this one is probably definitely going to make the list for game of the year. I'm just saying. All right, so next on my list, I have none other than Resident Evil 4 coming in at a 93 on Metacritic right there. Now, the Resident Evil 4 remake, is there much more to say on this? It's the Resident Evil 4 that a lot of people love. I mean, there's a reason why this game has managed to get ported from the GameCube era almost on every single console since, even up to this current day right here, or at least just the classic one. So we know Capcom was going through doing remakes for Resident Evil 2, 3. We knew 4 was coming up next though. Everything from what I heard heard on this game was just great, phenomenal, just kind of nice experience in terms of you getting in, getting out though. They did a few little tweaks here and there though, just to kind of enhance the gameplay and stuff of that nature though. But outside of that, it's just a really great, phenomenal experience. What more do you kind of expect from Capcom right there though? But this is gonna be one of those few remakes that is probably gonna manage to get its way into this list fairly easy. All right, so we already talked about a remake, but what about a remaster? Now this one, if this one manages to hit this list right here, that's gonna completely flip and turn some heads right here. Yes, I am talking about none other than Metroid Prime Remaster that actually managed to come in at a Metacritic score of 94. Now that is in itself is crazy. It's like literally within like the top 4 games that was ranked Metacritic wise for the whole entire year. Usually remasters don't have like a good reputation to manage to be able to even get into the nominations, but the fact that this, Metacritic score for this one was just that high, I mean, this might be the chance that we might see a remaster possibly get nominated right there. For a while, Metroid Prime Remaster was beating out a lot of these other titles before they actually even managed to actually come out though. Obviously, this is the GameCube game that we all know and love, obviously with a new HD coat of paint right there. And honestly, you know what? It's just crazy how well this game has looked, how it's been optimized, how they've been going through and adding extra different controls and stuff like that. Where you want to play with motion, where you just want to play it, with a pro controller, whether or not you want to add gyro up into it, everything else in between though. There's a lot of different ways how you can go through and play this game. It just looks beautiful and stunning. And one of the reasons why this game has held up to this day is because of that art style, the way how it looked and stuff. So honestly, a really great, phenomenal game. Was a game that was originally shadow dropped back in February though, and it's just crazy to see how high that Metacritic has managed to be. All right, now it's time to talk about the cream of the crop right here, because we are talking about some of the last 2 games came in at a Metacritic score of 96, and we're talking about Boulders Gate 3. This was definitely probably the Elden Ring moment for this year, because it was a game that not a lot of people probably would even gave, 2 second thoughts to, with it being, within the Dungeons and Dragons series right here though. But somehow it managed to slip into the mainstream, probably just because of the matter of fact that you're able to do so many different actions upon this game, and within those actions there's like 3 different consequences that might happen, and then it just kind of branches, so you have like a lot of different outcomes, a lot of different endings and stuff. I mean, I don't know why. It's like you see some crazy stuff about some bears up in Boulders Gate 3. I ain't gonna start with that though, but you have a lot of different options in terms of how you get to explore, go through this game, the different consequences. I think that's one of the reasons why this game has managed to blow up in the way how it did. Originally dropped out on PC, but then later came out on other consoles like the PS5 and and everything else though. But honestly, it was definitely one of those games that really caught a lot of people off guard, and I think guaranteed this game is going to show up within the nomination list for Game of the Year. And last and certainly but not least, coming in at the very top, we had the king of all kings making his triumphant return from 2017. We're talking about Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, coming in at a Metacritic score of 96. That right there is just absolutely insane right there. See, now obviously it might have felt like a point or 2 lower than from the original Breath of the Wild though, but with everything that they managed to actually encompass within this game in terms of just not only just the surface, having that whole sky realm where you're able to go back and forth between the sky and the ground, and then a complete underground. It felt like they basically, multiplied Breath of the Wild's world map by like 2.5. That was just absolutely nuts. There's a lot of different exploring, a lot of different bosses, a lot of different challenges, a lot of different puzzles, and a lot of different side quests and, main adventure quests, obviously the main story, and everything else in between. It was a very deep, really great experience right there. I really can't say much more than that, otherwise this winds up turning into a whole review though. But there's a reason why everybody and their mama really likes some Legend of Zelda games, and why it was like one of the top 2 games of 2023 with the highest Metacritic, coming in at a 96. So looking at all these different games I just recently ran through, there's a lot of games that could be potentially nominated for Game of the Year right here. There is 11 games I actually managed to think that possibly be nominated for Game of the Year. But like, as I said, they usually always choose 6. So if I were to go through and choose my 6 right now, is what I think as of this moment, as of October 19th for the time of this recorded, that I think they will wind up choosing, I think it was going to be between Tears of the Kingdom, them: Boulders Gate 3, skip Metroid Prime Remaster, unfortunately, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and that sixth spot is the one that's like the absolute trickiest. It's gonna be between either Final Fantasy 16 or Sea of Stars. If they had to have the indie rep, it'll be Sea of Stars, but my gut is saying Final Fantasy 16 is gonna show up in some regards. So I'll choose Final Fantasy 16 right there though. But yeah, those are my top 6 that I think is probably gonna be nominated for Game of the Year, but all these other games I mentioned along the way have equal shot at this as well though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all did you think about this list that I managed to bring forth in front of y'all today. Obviously, I can't mention every game that managed to come out this year though, but there's a lot of good games that managed to come out in 2023 though. So it's gonna be one heck of a race for that Game of the Year nomination, let alone the actual Game of the Year when December 7th rolls around, when the Game Awards actually air. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of this video right here. So if you really like it, make sure you're gonna hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.